Just looking for some better sounding medieval lo-fi, which is something I never expected to be like searching for. Hey everybody, how you all doing? Almost ready to get started. Just waking up as if it's not like 6 p.m. here. But, I'm always feeling a little tired. I need to get a good night's sleep, I think. I've been very bad at doing that recently. But that's okay. That's okay. Alright. I think I've done enough loitering. Let's see what I have forgotten to do. Nothing so far. Everything's seemingly as it usually is, which is good. It's the intention. Oh, I just bumped my own desk. So the next panel that we're doing is this one for the Doghouse Inn, because this whole panel is done. That's all good to go, so I don't need to dwell on it unless I really want to, but that's just going to make things take longer, so we're not going to dwell on it. It's done. Okay. So next panel. Well, next series of panels, because I'm going to need to do most of them all together before separating them. So there's that, and then through that we go flat layers and then line work, or flat colors. Because every time you make a new panel in the comic settings for Clip Studio Paint, it always provides you with a normal illustration layer. So because I draw in line work layers, I don't use that for the illustration, but I always use it for flat colors, and basically it just means that it's just a little bit less time making a new layer for every time I want to use color, which isn't that much of a convenience, but it's still useful. So take what you can get, really, in terms of convenience. That's way too thick of a line for something like that. Yeah, there we go. I've done all the hard work with the draft layers, so most of this will just be pretty simple. Just simple alterations and things like that. So it should be fairly chill. I think these are like modern classics with a medieval and then lo-fi beat and alteration, which I think is insane, but also great for what I'm working on and working with. But it's so weird that I have a lo-fi medieval playlist to use, or that I can use. I mean, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, but also confused as to how this horse got in my house. How he got to a point where we could have a gift horse, essentially. There we go. Actually, not there we go. There's still something to add. There we go. There we go. Does that look anything like the previous panels? Sort of. Sort of. Because this is a different angle, I'm going to try and make it look as such. Perspective change, you know, kind of thing. Do as much as I can to make it look different, while also making it still look like it did before, just from a different angle. There we go. There we go. It's, yeah, slowly coming together. And I also, the only drawback to the kind of like adding various things on a whim is that I now have to go back and make sure that I include them in this next panel. The problem with improvising what I was drawing is that now I need to remember what I was drawing. That looks terrible. Hold on. Just don't look right. That is not going to look any better. That's super weird. Let me just check. I mean, yes, I get what it is, but still a bit to fix for it to be usable. Like that. I mean, I think that's pretty much exactly the same, but I'm willing to tolerate it. Almost just whacked my own headphones off, Jesus. That just goes to show how tired I am. Just, ugh. Brain just not working today. Not the way it usually doesn't work. It's a different kind of not working way. That will actually look better. As opposed to a right angled branch. Which is very weird. So some things can definitely change. Yeah, I can trust that to be fine. No, I can't. Gotta do it. Gotta do these panels right. Put my best amount of effort in. As much as I can, at least. You know, I can't just half-ass it. That wouldn't be right. Wouldn't be fair on myself or the comic itself. Oh, giggles. Thank you. Hello, 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 hello. How are you? It was lovely to catch you on stream yesterday as well. Lovely to see that you're back. We got one stone back there. Well, I remember. Yes. I think I can. There we go. Oh, I am so sleepy. Keeping focused as best I can. But it's been very much like a wind down kind of a day. So now I just feel the sleep coming to me. That should be good enough. Because I don't show any of the tree itself. So, that should be fine. I say, going back to check. Yeah, I don't really show any of the tree, so it's, yeah. Maybe even a little too close, but... Hold on. Yeah, I only showed, like, the trunk, so I can get rid of that bit that I wasn't sure about. And that's art, baby. If you dislike a part of it, you just hide it. So no one can see. There we go. Nice. I keep giving thumbs up to camera, even though there is no camera. Because I'm not actually a mouse. I know, hard to believe, surprising, but it is true. It is wild. I operate with a mentality of like, people might not see it, but what if they do? And so I just kind of push the need to make sure everything is as exact or as, like, I'm a perfectionist about it. About things that I really don't need to be. But, hey, what can you do? Let me just actually draw in the horizon. There we go. Fantastic. Is there anything important I'm forgetting in that one space? My favorite little space of this, like, area. I got bushes and stuff to draw in, but they're very simple to include. If you catch my meaning, they're mounds of bush. Yes. Oh, and bunting. There's a fuck ton of bunting that I've just left. Okay. Bush. I'll just zoom out and see. Okay. I did it in spaces of 2, essentially. Between 2 trees. Or after 2 trees, I guess. You could say. Wait. Horizon line. Fuck off. It's a bush there now. You can't be there. Because, yeah, now I need to make it accurate to the previous panel. And the previous panel contained a ton of, like, yeah, improvised additions to the landscape. Which isn't a bad thing, but it's just, yeah, that I would need to re-add them in. And even though there's, like, a big sign blocking a good portion of the landscape in this panel, I still need to do this panel justice, the bits that you can see justice. It is the grey mouse guarantee. Okay, so between that tree and that tree, so the second tree on the right, which we can't see, and that tree there. Like that. And then we draw in bunting. I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit closer. That's shite. That's also just too thin. Gotta get it right. Gotta optimize the bunting. Because the idea is that with each piece of bunting, it slowly gets smaller. Like, they get smaller and smaller as they get further away. Is that singing? Oh no, it's like a horn. And like, I gotta get rid of that. That's gonna distract me. Or it won't, who gives a shit? Who gives a dang? That's gonna be a complicated one. There we go. There we go. Let's do that. Yeah, cool. There is no tree trunk here. That's what I'm missing. It's a tree trunk in this space. Just that. Just that much. That explains enough, you know. There's also a thing I need to explain, so that's why in my tweet I talked about having maybe an extra chapter, also because it'll mean that this chapter is 10 pages long, which is fitting because the previous chapter was also 10 pages long. So that's the goal. But with the deadline, it's like, what do I sacrifice that one page? Probably not. I would just sacrifice the deadline. I would sooner get rid of the deadline than I would get rid of a page that actually explains something important. Because basically, I'm planning on adding an extra page to explain something that actually does have narrative importance. So, yeah, I can't really compromise that. And if it means that I just chapter 2 just is delayed, that's fine. I would rather something be delayed and good than rushed and bad. Especially this, like, early in the comic. You know? We don't need people going, oh yeah, chapter 2 of Rat Baby's pretty rushed. We don't need that kind of a rumor. Not at all. Alright. Just seeing Ratchet's face bent that way is super funny. Because that's not how he's gonna be looking up at this sign in the actual version, but it just looks so funny. So dorky and shit. Cool. I should probably do the crest first. Let's zoom in. Oh, that's a mess. There we go. I say as I delete it and try again. That's a mess. That's a mess. But a tolerable mess. Like me, tolerable mess. There we go, cool. Okay. There we go. There we go. Ropes. Done. Ropes and crest all done. I mean, the crest isn't done, but it's together at the very least. Give it a little bit of something. Texture. Texture, so to speak. Actually, no. Oh. The angle on that is so weird that I actually didn't recognize what it was before I realized it was the beam. Oh. It's little. The pen nib definitely needs replacing. At least soon. And I'm actually gonna... Oh, jeez. Because yeah, it should be more like that. But I'm gonna erase it first. The old one first. And then draw in the new line. Because I'm not a fan. Some of old Grey Mouse's work. Draft Grey Mouse. Nah. Not a fan. This beam doesn't make sense in my head. Oh yeah, it straight up doesn't make sense. It shouldn't be this high. I mean, high, low. Opposite of what I was saying. It should be about there. And then the rest should be just empty space, essentially. Because this beam is the one Ratchet was standing beside before. Or, not standing beside, standing behind, really. Just explaining my process. Which I feel doesn't need to be explained, but I'm doing it anyway. And with that done, this stuff doesn't make sense anymore. Some of this stuff doesn't make sense. So that bit does. This bit doesn't. It's better, but only just. Also feels directionally wrong. Just gonna... Oh, Jesus. Hate that I can't use the eraser while I'm using the line tool. Let me just use the eraser. Because if that's flat ground, it's almost tilted upwards, like towards a hill. Or as if this inn is on a hill, and that doesn't make sense. That's not a structurally wise decision. That's also... Oh! A happy gecko as our warm-up. Alright, let me just finish this line. And then I will draw a happy gecko. With my squeaky ass pen. Yeah, that's way better. Cool. Alright. To the gecko. Don't mind this. That was just a warm-up from a previous day. Don't mind him. He good. Alright, so gecko. Kind of starting with what looks like a mouse head. It's not. Hang on. So geckos are funny little creatures. I'm currently just drawing Kermit the Frog, who kind of looks more like a gecko than a frog, but I'm not drawing Kermit the Frog. Not yet. Let's put his tongue down there. No, he could be more excited. He could be more happy. Let's upgrade the happiness to this guy. Just bump it up a little bit. Doing a bit of the Pingu newt, but that's a good look, so I don't hate it. And geckos have little snozzers. Snozzos. Almost looks like a duck. Which I like either way, but we'll give him some little like texture and some patterns and stuff. Hey, Zombie Slayer, hello. How you doing? That looks weird. Hold on. That arm's too big, but we're getting there. Well, and you? I'm good. I'm tired. I'm sleepy. I haven't been sleeping like a normal amount of hours, that's for sure. But, like, I'm doing okay. Always just a little bit tired. Actually, I might just move this whole boy a little bit. And geckos have such, like, lovely tails, like, lovely chunky tails. And Giggles, you gotta name this gecko. We gotta have a name for this little lad or lady. Shift it just a bit up and over so we can get all the gecko in. Gecko needs a name. There we go. What a weird little body. Frank. Frank is a good name for a gecko. That's for sure. Is that short for Francis, or was he just born Frank? Now, do I make? Yeah, I'm not gonna make him. I'm not gonna make him have a lumpy front. Let's just make him a little bit smoother. A touch smoother. There we go. And then tail, because yeah, one of my favorite things is like geckos have almost like a raccoon tail, but of meat. Short for Frankfurter. Ah, that makes sense. And a very good name. Thoughts and opinions about Fallout TV show. I'm keeping my expectations, and I have none. So most adaptations aren't good. Yeah. I don't think Fallout needs. It's one of these things with like video game adaptations. I don't think video games need adaptations, purely because enjoyment of a video game is a subjective experience, and then also like it's an experience that you enjoy by either by yourself or with your friends, but the story is always different for everyone who plays it. So the fact that movies will come out and it's like this is how the story goes. It's either different from what people are used to or the same, and why would we necessarily want to watch something that's the same but shorter? Of course, I'd like it to be good, but I'm having my hopes. I have none. Oh, so you're setting you're going into it without expectations. So then at worst you watch something that you weren't necessarily too bummed out about, I guess, which is still fair. But I don't know. I don't know why. As I don't know. I For me personally, I don't know why we strive to have movies about content that is significantly longer than said content. So, like, the shortest video game is usually upwards of 4 hours long. Whereas a movie, if a movie was 4 hours long, it would be shit no matter what it was. If you know what I mean. Like, no one's gonna sit and watch a movie for 4 hours, especially not in the cinema. So I don't know. I don't know what the big kind of push for video game adaptations of. Oh no, movie adaptations of video games. That's like one thing I don't necessarily understand, and so I'm not hugely invested either way, I guess. Yes, indeed. I'm going to assume they never have played the games, and the directors think it's some random sci-fi post-apocalyptic game or something, or whatever. And one exception for a 4-hour Halo movie is the Lord of the Rings extended editions. Um, but those are on DVD, not the movie releases. Yeah, exactly. It's like I would never watch something in cinemas that was 4 hours long. That would just be, yeah, agony, I think. So for me, I don't, yeah. But that's also just me as well. If people really want a Fallout TV series or movie, I don't think they'll be able to do Fallout in a movie. But yeah, if people want it, then people can have it, I would say. Because geckos moisten their eyes with their own tongues. So I thought I'd add just a little bit of that. Because he's so happy. He's like, whoa, my eye is so moist. I'm so happy. Frankly, I love licking my eyeball. Gotta have like the little wedges in the right places. There we go. Yeah! And because he is a lizard, gotta give him toes. I know, and people are gonna be like, that logic doesn't track. It's a gecko, so he has to have. I mean, he's a reptile, so he has to have toes. Trust me, guys. Just trust me. Trust me. I also feel because of all the Marvel stuff, they're adapting. They're adapting a lot of like not they. Studios and producers are adapting a lot of content from other mediums, and I've seen this argument a few times that when you adapt content from other mediums, it can't be adapted 100%, and for me I find that to be an excuse for to not try and like not try to adapt content 100%. And so I'm not fully convinced by it. The show has some hopes, but even then, Fallout isn't supposed to be a couple hours long. It's like 80 plus hours, and that doesn't count for what gamers like to do, such as 100% a game or getting all unique items. Just because, yeah, exactly. That's my point. Completely is that it's to adapt a big game like Fallout. They're not gonna do it. I mean, this is just my opinion, but it's an educated opinion from someone who has a degree in film. Sorry. Sorry, I don't need to say it like that, but I have a degree in film, and to adapt content that is so huge like that, there are things going to be left on the cutting room floor, and those things are going to be important. And most people aren't going to be satisfied with whatever they get. And for most, that argument is valid, especially with Fallout. Trying to make Frank fit in this space, but it's a little tough. My book is too small for Frank. No, Frank. That'll do. That'll do. That's enough of Frank in his little space. Let's say it is good, and as I once heard a few days ago, for every Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings movies, you get 42 movies. Yeah, exactly. Oh, let me grab a water. Don't mind me. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be good. But that's okay. That's also another thing. It can be not good. They would need a cinematic universe to set up the Fallout world. I think. Like, quite honestly, I think, yeah, it would require that much just to fit it all in. Also, speaking of adaptations that are good, One Piece. I've finally watched half of the One Piece live action episodes. And it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Is it as good as the manga? No, probably not. And it does, from a writing perspective, it has a few issues, for sure, but it's still fun to watch. Like, it's a lot of fun to watch. And I think they do adapt it pretty well. Like, the adaptation is quite good. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. It's way better than most other anime live actions. That's for fuck sure, you know. But yeah. Yeah. Pleasantly surprised with it personally. When I saw the first trailer, I was like, "Oh, this is not going to be good," but hopefully people aren't horrible about it. And it wasn't not good, so I was like, "Cool." And then I heard people being like raving about it. And I'm like, "Oh, great." And then I saw it and I was like, "Yeah, it's good." But, you know. And a large portion of Fallout is here, go where you like and do what you want. But the show being a show, it's linear based. Yeah, well, it'll seem linear at the very least because it only really focuses on one place to the other, so it can't be anything but linear. Well, I mean, actually, it could be, through flashbacks and flash forwards and things like that. You could actually make it non-linear, but I think that would be meaningless for a show like Fallout. But then I'm also like, it's just the sort of, like, again, my perspective on stuff like this is like, this doesn't need to be made. It just straight up doesn't need to be made. Give us another good Fallout game. That's what I want. Just another good Fallout game. Fallout 4 also is actually pretty okay, but story wise, not fantastic. Is that. Yeah, that's the line work. That could be thinner, that line. But it's okay. And I haven't drawn Ratchet at all, so. Yeah. So his head doesn't need to be that far tilted back. Pretty much done the exact same, like, angle. That's okay. And I don't know how you do something such as VAT skills, stats, any RPG gameplay. You wouldn't. That's the thing. That's the whole thing. You wouldn't do that in a show, in a movie. You wouldn't do that. You would just remove it completely because there's no way to adequately depict it or depict it in a way that is interesting. Because it's like, I love Fallout, but VATS is pretty. Like, there's no way of making VATS interesting. VATS is a utility. The inner, like, the inner nature of the story is immensely doable, though, of course. Like, the inner human conflict and stuff like that. The humanness of Fallout. That's doable. But, again, is it necessary? Yes. For that story to be good, it has to have that human conflict. Or that humanism to it. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. So, meaning that a lot of Fallout isn't there. Yeah, it would just be a post-apocalyptic series essentially with recognizable Fallout fan service and storyline. Yeah, it would rely heavily on the story as opposed to the mechanics because you can't depict mechanics in in a show, especially if it's directed at new audiences as well, because it kind of would have to be as well. Like, sure, it is for Fallout audiences. Like, it's fan service for Fallout like enjoyers, but it would have to bring in new audiences as well. So, with that in mind, it can't really do too much. Like, too much of that Fallout known stuff, if you know what I mean. Actually, I don't even know what I mean. It can't do too much of the Fallout inside humor, essentially. It would have to do a lot of explaining to explain what's going on, which in the Fallout series you kind of do on your own, piecing together bits of alternative history. And I could give him a little smile. Yeah, soft. Right, there isn't any falloutness to it. As in, like, well, no, there would be falloutness to it because, admittedly, Fallout has a very unique and interesting, like, diversely interesting apocalyptic world. You know, they have super mutants, ghouls, I mean, if you had a Fallout New Vegas style movie or show, I don't think it, like, I genuinely do not think it would work as a movie because there is just too much content and too much world building that you would need to develop before you even get the story started, essentially. So I think it could only really work as a TV series, and that being said, it'd have to be a big TV series, like a long TV series, because as I was saying with the One Piece like series, it's done a lot of condensing, but even still, that's going to be a lot of episodes and a lot of seasons to actually fully develop that story that already exists. In addition to piecing things together, people also have different interpretations to what does and doesn't happen. Yeah, exactly. There's so much like that series. There's so much to do that is kind of like stepping on eggshells. And also like a lot of it has aged relatively well, but parts of it haven't, and not in a bad way, but it's like some of it definitely shows the era it was trying to like exist in, and maybe that story needs to be adapted well to a modern audience as well. But you know, that's not. I don't think that's a big issue, honestly, because it's not that old. Exactly, you would have to do blueprints for the blueprints, and that's probably just for the rough draft. Absolutely, like it would almost go. I would almost go so far as to say that, like with George R. R. Martin's involvement in Elden Ring, you'd actually have to have long spanses of time talking about the the foundations of what came before, even before the story is started, and things like that. Because for those of you who don't know about what I'm talking about, George R. R. Martin got to was writing on Elden Ring, but what he wrote was actually fairly minute. He basically put names and history to a world that had already been developed, essentially, which is like the opposite of what you would want to do for the Fallout series, but it's in the same vein of what I mean, in that there would have to be so much more development that goes into making this just work straight up. Right, it shows its age, and that's okay, but not probably not what. But that probably won't help either if we do, even if we do love it. Yeah, my concern most of all is that it's just another series that's being pulled into the zeitgeist, or not into the zeitgeist, but into the forefront because it is popular, and they're only making a series because they know it's popular. Like The Witcher, essentially, which was the TV series was announced during its height, during the height of its popularity due to the games. but the people who created The Witcher didn't give a shit about The Witcher at all. They just wanted to make a show. Or really, they wanted to make money off of a community that they knew would be as loyal as they could be to something. Or try to be as loyal as they could to something. And as you can see, it's not gone well for them because they pretty much bit the hand that fed them. Now no one wants it, so that's my only concern with current content like that, is that it often is there to appeal to an audience because they want to exploit that audience, essentially. Exploit their wallets, anyway. Just my Discord. Oh, I guess it kind of always looks like I am just like stopping my stream just to promote my own Discord and stuff. That's like a timed message. But it is always so funny to me. Like, oh, hold on, let me just pause what I'm doing to promote my Discord. That's good. Not good enough. That is good. I'm happy with that. They also want to appeal to an audience, but you already have an audience. Of course, they didn't build it, but it's there. Yeah, they want to advertise further, which is fair enough to their system, like the system of how TV production goes. You still want to find an audience or address an audience, essentially. But if something that is already established has an audience, which it mostly usually will because it's already established, then you're not really advertising to them, but you still need to, like, I mean, especially nowadays, you still need to, what's it called? You know, promise that it will be what they want to see. And you want to stay in their good graces for as long as possible. Or if you're, like, genuinely trying to make a honest, or not honest, but a fan kind of oh! Oh no! Oh dear, I'm trying to explain something quite complicated. Oh no. Trying to explain the inner mechanisms of television. And now I'm Mort. King Julian, how could you do this to me? Oh dear. Perfect timing. Oh, Zombie Slayer, we love you. I am a professional illustrator. I'm not some performing monkey. Oh wait, no. Performing bush baby. That's true. Oh, I'm free. I'm free. Yeah, exactly. Inner machinations of TV, then boom, TV's biggest hero, Mott. That hasn't lined up properly. I haven't lined that up properly. I was so taken aback by the Mort redeem as I tried to explain the nature of TV production, and then just boom, do the Bush baby voice, Grey Mouse. Ah. And if there was ever any kind of a like advertisement for my channel, that's probably that. That's probably it. Mort, you're back. Hi, Mort. Yeah. So there is, yeah, a new redeem, which is basically for a minute, I'll just talk as Mort. Because it seemed to be very popular. But yeah, I fully didn't expect anyone to notice that it was there this stream. So as I was explaining that, just completely caught off guard. And I'm just like, oh! Quick, get back into it. Do I keep explaining everything that works in television? And then I was like, yeah. Mouse, that should be your channel trailer. I'm working on a channel trailer. I could always add that into it. My channel trailer was going to be more like addressing the comic, essentially. But, I mean, that is an appropriate addition to explaining it. And explaining who the hell I am, what the hell I do. There we go. Sort of. Is that good enough for me? Yes. I can live with that. I mean, yeah, and I really do need to use the channel trailer functionality, because currently I use it as, it's the stream over screen, which is just Punga sleeping, which is super cute, but it just, you know, is it good enough and important? But what if you explained your comic in the Mort voice? Me with the little girl saying, why not both? I can't, oh my god, I'm not doing that. Fuck that. That would be so painful for me. And also, I need some people to take me seriously. I need potential investors to not hear the Mort voice. Because if they do, they're not going to bankroll this thing. Need that cash. Need that cash money to afford all the paper that I'm going to spend. Yeah, I'm going to buy from making a comic. Hold on, guys. I'm just going to quickly change the nib of my pen because it's starting to. The one I've currently got in there is wearing down. Hey. And I'm also working on a Ratchet introduction, so a video explaining who Ratchet is and things like that as well. The boy is now watching. Hello, Cryo's child. How are you? Mort. I thought we agreed it. I'd be buying all the paper. You can buy the paper if you want. It's going to cost a lot of paper. Paper money. And I probably want to go with recycled paper as well because save the planet and stuff. I keep the tweezers there. Yeah, I really need to buy... Yeah, there we go. That's nice and soft and not squeaky. But yeah, I definitely need to buy some more nibs because I've been wearing these ones down. So the only drawback of the Wacom or Wacom Cintiq 15 is that it only comes with 3 replacement nibs, whereas my previous one, the Intuos, had like 10 replacement nibs, and they were different like consistencies. Some had different textures and stuff for like paper. Like it made it feel like you were drawing on paper and things like that. This one only has 3 and they're the basic ones. So I need to just buy a bunch of them Did you hear that people thought gamers were gatekeeping good storytelling because The Last of Us show was so good? God, I mean, you're gonna find idiots in every avenue of everything. That's just how it is, you know? There are always gonna be dinguses. And that is their right. People are allowed to kinda be dinguses. You kinda gotta give them that right. As long as they're not hurting anybody. And to be fair, gatekeeping is annoying as hell, but you can kinda just ignore them. Now, I need to actually make a logo or a symbol for this inn to might give it some thought. Because I've called it the Doghouse Inn, but I kind of want like an image. That looks like shite. It's a weird. That'll do, really. No, that's weird. I mean, that's good enough, honestly. It doesn't need to be fancy. Just needs, like, just a bit of an image. And you get the pup. And then I'll put a little house behind him. And then I'll add the writing. Control Z. And with a New Vegas show, you'd have to pick one of the four factions, thus sort of kind of confirming who should rule the wasteland. Yeah, well, yeah. Essentially, you would. Because, like, you can only do the Lone Wanderer for so long. Like, as in, like, you can only be the... Kind of like the Mandalorian, essentially. Like, no, factionless. You can only be factionless for so long in Fallout New Vegas. Even if you go with the wild card, even if you go with Yes Man, which admittedly would be quite funny in film, um, you're still picking a faction and picking a side. Though it's probably the most poignant side for the character if it were a TV-based show, because you're still factionless, essentially. You've got, you're your own faction, but you are essentially factionless. The factionless drifter cowboy-esque character, it only happens for so long. Well, yeah, it can only happen for so long, because without it, your character has no growth or development. And in, in the screenwriting handbook, the lonesome drifter is a regressive, not a regressive, almost like a recessive story characteristic or characteristic. You can't have a lonely drifter in the story forever. They have to go through some sort of development, if you catch what I am meaning by that. Character arcs require alteration and change, if for the better or for the worst, comedy and tragedy and things like that. If your character doesn't change, we can't be invested in them, or we struggle to invest in them. And most people are like, oh, well, here's this character who doesn't change and we love him for it. And it's like, yeah, but he does change and you just don't. It's one of those really minute changes, essentially. small scale, baby, like character growth. It is character growth. The only reason I don't use the term character growth in that example is because it's not, like a character will change. It's not necessarily positive, and that's where the tragedy kind of aspect comes from. Characters can grow, oh, not grow. Characters can change, but it's not always positive. They can change for the worst. We're constantly changing. Constantly changing on the inside too. But yeah, it's not always good. Yeah, like humans. Humans are always changing, and we're not always changing for the better. Sometimes we change and become slightly more assholey. Or we become better. Or we return to where we were before, which can be good, or bad, or both. What did I miss? Bip, 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 bip. I also forgot to say I bought another sketchbook because of course I did. Because I'm an addict, hopeless addict for sketchbooks and stuff. But so this is my third sketchbook that I'm currently working through. But I bought it with the express intention that basically it's just a book I can draw faces and expressions in, essentially. But hilariously, I opened the book and first face I drew was just a goth girl, and I was like, "Yep, I clearly am a one-note character when it comes to things I like to draw. Good on me." The Lone Wanderer, Soul Survivor, Courier 6 having almost no character is just so we can make them what we want them to be, but in a show that can't exist. Yeah, that's projection. Like, you project yourself onto the character. And as you said, it does not work for a TV show because we don't want to project ourselves onto a character, we want to relate to them. Which is an interesting dichotomy in that we still, in a sense, relate to them, but not in the same way. We still identify with a character, but just not in the same way. I'm gonna just quickly focus on location of trees, just so that I can get this done correctly. I saw you had a message, Zombie Slayer. I will respond to it in a second. Just need to make sure I get this right, because if it's not, I will be sad, and we don't want me to be sad, right, guys? Right, gang? That's the same color. Cool. That makes shit simple. That one's green, and that one's orange. I also forgot to do the sky, but I know what color the sky is, so that's okay. Alright, let me check. Right, and if people say this character hasn't changed, well then you haven't paid enough attention to how they have evolved. Yeah, a character change is inevitable in a character. Change is inevitable in a human, it is just the very nature of people. You cannot exist without change. And it's not bad if a character changes. I mean, sometimes it can be. A character can change for the worst, as I've said. but it's also inevitable that a character will change. Pink. And then orange again. Okay. Just because I've been very selective about the spacing of colors and stuff, it feels like I've had a lot of similarities in terms of foliage, but it's just because, yeah, you get it. And by default, different stories are told differently. Yeah. Yeah, sure. I mean, exactly. Yeah. It's very easy to get caught up in how we want something to go, but it may not be the director's intention or the writer's intention. And so we could feel sometimes like this isn't how a character should be written. And maybe it isn't, but who are we to decide that as well? So a Fallout show, no thanks. Just make another game that formula already works. Yeah, just do another game properly, and it's good, and then we're golden. But that's the thing. TV production companies can't get any sweet cash from that, so there will probably be a show. I can't remember what was announced. Like a TV show for something was announced recently, and I was like, that's the dumbest fucking idea I've ever heard. Um, I mean, it's like what I've heard firsthand. Like some of my friends went out to see the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, and they came back and they told me it was just shit. It was just absolute garbage. But like, the only thing I've heard about it online is that people are like, "Oh, this is the best movie ever." Well, the Fallout games haven't worked as of lately, but you catch my drift. Yeah, exactly. Like, just get them to work nice. I mean, or good enough, and we'll all be happy. I am certain of that. And by certain, I mean I'm fairly closely certain. I can't be 100% because nobody's happy. Like, you can't make everyone happy. I know what color they are, so I'm just going to do that. Quickly sneak that color. They're charmingly broken, I think, is the word that you're looking for. Broken, yes, undoubtedly. Unplayable, no. Perfect, absolutely not. But is that okay? Yeah, absolutely. Best movie ever. Who in the name of God said that? I can understand liking it, but best movie? Go chill. Yeah. I haven't seen it, admittedly. I haven't seen it at all. It's not my thing. Either way, I don't think. But, like, yeah. I think it's very strong opinion for it to be, like, groundbreaking or anything new. And don't get me wrong, I love Matthew Lillard. He's great. And I'm sure he was great in it too. But I just heard it was bad and that like, the fans are just kind of like in denial about that, I guess. They're just like, oh no, the movie's amazing. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Not seen it, but I also usually my understanding is if my friends notice issues with it, then I'm gonna notice more issues with it. you know, just because of I spent 4 years like studying the blade. No, I spent 4 years learning why my favorite movies are shit, you know. So I'm gonna find points of critique with everything. So yeah. It's gonna be a lot of filling in for this one. That's okay. In terms of a Fallout show, an equally stupid idea would be a Dishonored movie. It takes all the fun away. I think a Dishonored movie, yeah, I don't think there's any way a Dishonored movie could work, or it wouldn't work easily, I would say. And again, with my original point, I think there are some things that just don't need movies. There is some content out there in the world that just doesn't really need a movie for it. Or even a TV show. I think adapting stuff to different mediums is a cool potential, but it comes with many sacrifices. And so just like, realistically, that would just be a basic revenge story movie, but with magic. Yeah, it'd be high fantasy, which isn't a bad thing. High fantasy is such a cool concept. Like, such a cool, like, world that we see so rarely. Or see so rarely done well. So I wouldn't be against something like it, but just not Dishonored. I don't think it needs to be Dishonored. You can have a high fantasy world like it, but maybe just not Dishonored, you know? And like Disco Elysium, that's a really dense game, but it's high fantasy. It's fantastic high fantasy, but it's really dense. So I would not even come close to recommending that. Like, that become a TV show or a movie. I mean, actually, maybe it could work as a TV show, but it would require like levels of consideration that go beyond what most modern TV shows do. Yeah, different story would be leagues better. Yeah, yeah, you get me. Y'all get me. Ugh, man. I always feel weird about my illustrations once they're in flat color mode, and I can't see no depth anymore. The depth is all gone. What's happened? What have I... Oh, Jesus. What have I done? What have I done to me world? No, it's important. Shut up, Grey Mace. This needs to happen. She's to happen, mate. Gotta fill in these colours and stuff. Make sure everything's actually properly filled in. I feel like I'm missing something in this space. There should be a donkey in this area. Eh. Also, this tree is just way too thin. So I'm just gonna, maybe erase too much. Speaking of high fantasy, I watched a video last night that there's two types of high fantasy. It has been 1,000 years since our dragons of old set foot upon our world, but alas, they are all gone and now and mysteriously disappeared. And then there's how in the fuck do we defeat these dragons? I mean, I guess. I think those are just arguably just two storylines of high fantasy. I don't think high fantasy necessarily revolves around dragons, is my only kind of point against that, is that fantasy doesn't necessarily revolve around dragons. But when it does, it really revolves around it. That looks like shit. Sorry. I get what you mean, though. It really do feel like that, doesn't it? Well, good point there. But yeah, you're also right in that so much modern high fantasy revolves very strongly around dragons, and I'm not exempt to this. There are gonna be dragons in this comic, you know? So, I get that. But then also, it's one of those things as well that, so much of what we understand in a genre can kind of be drawn down to, very specific, not stereotypes, but very specific categories. And often the series, or the shows, or the things, or the content, or the stories that break the mold are the ones that kind of step away from it sometimes, which is awesome because then we get really cool stuff. You know, Star Wars is a space western, and we didn't really have a western set in space before. Oh, space samurai story. Sorry, not western. But then samurai stories samurai movies were just westerns adapted and things like that. It's the nature of not adaptation, but film evolution. Or maybe it's the other way around. Westerns are samurai movies, or, either or. Either or. Hydrate, posture check. I'll do those. Greymouse's comic that he's been working on for years. As of now, that's going to be complicated to explain, but I'll try. I can try, at the very least. Ugh. Sometimes water is just the tastiest thing. I'm going to have to bring Frank, the gecko, down so that I can explain. Give me a moment. Let me just save my comic. And I'll grab Frank. Because he's the page I actually use to explain stuff with. Gonna put Frank away for a moment. And let me explain something. Okay. I'll just quickly grab a darker shade. Especially ice cold water at 3 a.m. when you randomly wake up. Yeah, and you wake up and you're really dehydrated. Whenever you're dehydrated, water, fantastic. Which I think is, explaining something that is very basic knowledge, very common knowledge. Okay, so basically, this comic, first of all, revolves... Why did I draw Ratchet like that? Revolves around him. Ratchet. So, Ratchet is... Oh, that's a weird fringe. Ratchet is basically a character that I played in a D&D campaign. I designed him specifically as a character who had a positive, or not necessarily positive backstory, but had a backstory that still resulted in him being a very positive character. So Ratchet is the kind of character who cannot really be broken down morally, and as a result he became very popular very quickly within my D&D party. However, of course you could just go to the fridge, but at least for me, at those times I'm physically too tired to get to the fridge. That's fair. So basically his ending story is positive. Not so much that. So basically, no matter what happens to him, he has a positive outlook. And it'll be explained more in the comics, but essentially, a lot of the time people see his positivity and his optimism as naivete. So they treat him as if he is a child. And the fact that he is 7 years old as a goblin, which is just off of age of maturity. Yeah, he's a glass half full type of person. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. So basically, Ratchet is a deeply positive character. And no matter like the hardships he faces or the danger he is in, he is always positive, optimistic, and happy. And the thing I found while I was playing this character, because I played him in D&D, so he was the character that I played in D&D. The thing I found with him was that most people thought of his optimism as him being naive. However, when it came to those moments of true, like, of true need for a hero, he was always the person who stepped up, because he was never naive. And this is the thing I wanted to really strongly explore. So Ratchet was never naive. He was almost more aware of the world around him and how cruel the world was than most others. And as we revealed his story, like his backstory, it became abundantly clear that his world was maybe harsher than others had seen. But because he always kept a positive outlook, the world around him became better. And the nature of the world changed to suit him, essentially. Because he was this positive, happy character, the world changed to accommodate for him. But he is also a thief. So he's a rogue who's a thief. And basically in D&D, that's maybe one of the weaker of the classes. Like, of the rogue subclasses as well, especially. So has some of the lesser abilities. He doesn't get magic and things like that. So as a result, as a playable character, he was a little bit hard to play. Just because if we went up against any creature that had physical attack resistances, so his normal little daggers, if his non-magic daggers, if the creature they were facing had like resistance to those things, then basically he was useless in the fight. So my intention was that he would travel and leave the party every so often in search of adventure and for greater purpose and things like that. During this time, I built up a new storyline for him. Or not a storyline for him, but basically an explanation of his absences, so why he was gone. These absences were going to be the events of the Beanstalk Brigade, so he would form a team of other goblins who would steal gold from giants. Through that, he would learn to accept who he was as a thief, and he would grow more powerful and stronger, so that every time he returned back to the party, he was just that little bit stronger and more able to face the dangers ahead of him. However, hold on, let me just read this message. I think I'd rather have a person who's rather naive than a Debbie Downer party pooper. Like when people say, I wish someone would date me so they just ruin the vibe. Yeah, exactly. But basically, so as I get back to it, basically the idea was that I would play a different character who is much stronger, who also appears in the comic, but I would play a different character who was much stronger while Ratchet was away. You know, and every time Ratchet came back, he was slightly stronger, and he would have more magical abilities and various new things like that. But then the campaign went on hiatus for about a year at first, and then it was 2 years. And then it became abundantly clear that this story was never going to be continued. Like, the campaign wasn't going to be continued. So, Ratchet never got closure for his story. The events of the story that have unfolded, and have unfolded in this comic, include Ratchet's father, his adoptive father Dogen, has gone missing. And then also his absence from his family. So Ratchet's absence from his biological family is also an addition that has been included in the comics. So, and will be explained further in chapters to come. But basically, Ratchet never really truly knew his family either. So, he has that kind of absence from that, which he will be exploring. And then also one storyline that we have been given insight into is that Ratchet's not biological, adoptive father is missing. Dogen is missing. Or maybe not missing, but gone. That's for sure. He is gone. No longer in Ratchet's life, seemingly. So, currently chapter 2 is exploring his movement away from his party. So, the first instance we have of him no longer being a part of his adventuring party, this group that you'll find out the name of in the next chapter. But he is no longer a part of this adventuring band of people. He is finally set out on his own. So he's no longer with them. No more. Not with them anymore. So his family knew him, but he didn't know them. Yeah, exactly. He was removed from them at a very young age. But that'll also be explained further in the comic. However, from what we have learned in chapter 2, he is now in possession of a thing which most people will know of because it's been introduced, but a thing called a magic bean, which I think which does exactly what you expect it to do. And he is so far he is delivering it to a town called Timberstone, which now you guys can actually see at the start of every stream, in the stream starting screen. So essentially, we're getting this first instance into Ratchet as a character, and we're building on him right now, but we're going to start to get involved in the Beanstalk Brigade stuff very, very soon. And since the campaign is not going to be restarted anytime soon, I'm also using it as an opportunity to provide closure for the other characters who were a part of the who were a part of the campaign. So their stories are gonna come to a close as well in the series, but they won't be focused on directly in this. So this was essentially originally a means for me to explore my group's D&D story and give it an ending. And I worked with the DM to make that happen, but it has essentially built out into its own thing. And it was originally going to be just a small series of small comics that explained Ratchet's absences. When the campaign stopped, it became a whole comic series that explained how Ratchet's story ended, but it was just for my friends, and then eventually it became a whole thing that is now open to everyone. Timberstone is unironically a great name. Thank you. It is based on Timberland from Open Season. Because I love that name. Genuinely, Open Season is not one of my favorite movies, but I love Timberland, which is the name of the town that it takes place in. So I was just like, what could I do to kind of, not pay homage, but get a similar kind of sounding name to it? So Timberstone is what it became. Open Season is the shit. It is. It sounds like the small town an adventurer would go to at the start of their game, and they get their first weapons like normal wooden bow and a regular steel sword. Yeah, that's also a big thing about it too, is that it does have a very small town vibe to it. But yeah, there's also a little thing is that this series will have a lot of references to a lot of various different things. Some things like that where it's like, oh, it's open season, or or um or like dumb little things, dumb little references that are not like nice and fun. Others will be, there will be folklore references and things like that. Let's put Frank back up in the warm-up page. Frank! It's like Good Springs. Essentially, yeah. Except most of the story will take place around Timberstone, or the area surrounding it. So those of you who have caught the stream just before I have actually gone live, you will see a dynamic. Actually, I could probably just show you. You will see a dynamic new starting screen. So I'm just going to open it up to that. It's that screen. So this is the stream starting screen that will stick with us until the end of the main series. Because this area is going to change quite significantly over the series entirely. So every time we get a new update to the story, this layout will change slightly. Some of it will be minute differences, some of it will be big differences, as it is Ratchet and the Beanstalk Brigade. Expect to see a beanstalk in this space at some point in time. But yeah, it was always kind of my intention to create a dynamic starting screen that would slowly build up in design as we went. Additionally, we have 2 spin-off series attached to this world that is also connected to some of the characters in the story. When those spin-off series start, we will have 2 new dynamic starting screens, which will be related to their stories as well. So yeah. And I wanted like a lot of my stream assets to actually be related to the comics, since that is such a main part of what I'm doing. Like the gaming is fun, for sure, but it is not all I do. The main thing I do is this comic. Anyway, back to what I was doing, this comic thing. But yeah, so that is me basically explaining the broad like swath of my comic. I can't explain anything further than that without giving away spoilers, and I will not be giving away spoilers for this, even though I'd love to tell you guys what's gonna happen. But I can't, because then it spoils it for you guys. It's a completely original new story. I can't spoil that for you all. And you guys don't want to know. You guys don't want to know what happens yet. You guys don't want to know what the main villain is yet. Or who the main villain is. Surely it would be more fun for you guys to, like, guess at this point in time. I keep these secrets from you guys because I know what's best for you. There are going to be bits in this story that are going to be devastating. There are going to be bits in this story that are going to be awesome and so much fun. There are going to be bits of this story that are going to be... Y'all are going to be mad at me because I've written it in such a way that maybe one of your favorite characters dies or suffers. Hey, that's showbiz, baby. It's just what's gonna happen. It's just what needs to happen. It's a fully fledged series, essentially. The entire manuscript isn't done. Before you guys ask, the entire manuscript is not finished. However, the timeline is almost completely finished. And I know how this series ends as well. Though, and also, there are 2 people who know the entire story. Only 2 people know this entire story, other than myself. So you're not going to get any spoilers. It's the safest way to keep people satisfied that they're not going to get spoiled. and I think I've said this before, but I have talked about the other like spin-off series, so it's not a spoiler to reveal that. But basically, the main series follows Ratchet, and then the two spin-off series will follow Dogen. So the first of the spin-offs will follow Dogen, so that character who is missing, or maybe missing, or maybe not missing. And the final spin-off will follow one of the villains of this series. So we will get to see the perspective of a character who is a villain, essentially. And that one is, I've also talked about this before, but that one is a horror series. So it'll be my first kind of, I mean, I'm super keen to do that one, but it's a big step into horror. And it'll be much more visceral than Ratchet's story. Which I'm sure you can all kind of understand that Ratchet's story isn't going to be that visceral. That being said, it's not going to not be too visceral. Because there are some characters here who can be violent. And that's okay. Ah, my neck. Just had someone beep their car alarm. It was weird. Okay. Is there anything else I need to actually... Yes. And that's line work. Wrong layer. Fucking people doing... They're bipping their alarm just over and over. As if they can't be certain if they've locked it or not. Mate, you've locked it. It's making that noise. Means it's locked. Is that... Yeah, that's everything. Cool. I just need to fill in Ratchet's eye color. And then we should be good to add shadows. I am just thinking, what else can I actually tell you guys about this comic? Because there's so much I can't tell you yet. It's too early to tell you guys too much. But the main series will also follow... It won't just purely follow Ratchet. There will be a few steps into other characters' backgrounds and things like that. Which should be really interesting, or should be quite interesting. Because it's kind of important to help set up that broad world. And that world building stuff, essentially. Gonna need to add that donkey, aren't I? Maybe I don't need to add the donkey. We'll see. I can fix it later. Just thinking on that one. So I'll move to shadows. And then figure out the rest from there. Because I can always come back and fix things. It's always an option. That's not dark enough. That might be too dark. Ah, it's fine. It is alright. I am also trying to do a little bit more in terms of the world building because essentially we are in a. So the story will take place. The main series will take place in Katianki or Katianki, which is the goblins' homeland. So I want to make the world building drastically different from a lot of fantasy, which is like, a lot of the elves' homeland or the dwarves' homeland or human homelands and stuff like that, where it's a lot of human architecture and a lot of human um, or very popular stereotypical mythology. So I wanted to kind of try and do something a little bit different, where the mythology and the folk stories and the folk tales and things like that have more of a goblin focused or goblin centric spin to them. So, like I said in my previous drawing stream, where I talked about like the language and stuff, the language of the goblins is gonna be everywhere, scattered about and visible for people to read and maybe decrypt or translate as time goes on. But the intention there is so that the world feels lived in but by the goblins as opposed to by people. And like human structures and stuff will still be here for sure, but not in the same capacity. And because this world is so new and vastly different to the empire, which is the human kind of civilization in this world, it doesn't necessarily know how to contend with the wilds of Katianki yet. So it's kind of trying to explore a lot of that, like what kind of world would be one that kind of resists architecture. And so I'm kind of starting that now, where I have a bunch of trees like just overgrowing pathways and things like that, pathways that have been made by the empire and then had to be repaved, and then it's still not worked and things like that. And then also because the goblin lifespans are so drastically short, they're about 25 years. So if I were a goblin, I'd be an old man. But because their lifespan is so short, they make the most of every day. And so my intention was to, like, how do you build architecture that's built around a people who only live for 25 years? And it's like, oh, it'd probably be, they'd probably cut some corners, or they'd be efficient builders because they would need to build stuff that was safe quickly, or relatively quickly. So yeah, but you got to put like a ton of thought into stuff like this. It's one of those things. It's like if you want a believable story, you got to put hours and hours and hours of effort into world building and background creation. Stuff that may never see the light of day, but is still important because it builds this kind of foundation. There we go. Little bit of light. Casting through the canopy. Don't know why I'm so zoomed out. Doing it again. Doing that thing again. where I'm just staying really zoomed out on a panel that I don't need to be zoomed out for. And I actually need to get those minute details, but I'm just like, hey, fuck it. I'm going to be zoomed out all the way because I'm an idiot. Because I'm a dang fool. Who the hell is messaging me? Shit you me. Trying to strum. And also I'll be streaming all day tomorrow as well. Cause it's my day off. So it's my day off, so why not work? You know? Gotta beat that deadline. Gotta pass that deadline. You know? So I gotta have to spend a few days working on stuff. But I'll start at 10, so actually that gives me enough time to actually have like a good morning and a good breakfast and stuff. Which I actually am keen for. Like sitting down in a cafe and eating a nice breakfast while I sketch stuff that I'm just gonna work on in my own time. Because my life has just become a sketch thing. I do feel like I'm a full-time illustrator these days. Because I spend so much fucking time drawing. And that's such a positive thing. I'm actually so happy about it. But it is weird to think about because, you know, on my, like, I'm not paid to be a full-time illustrator. But I still act like one. And what's cool is I was asked if I was a full-time illustrator recently, and I'm like, nope, I'm not a full-time illustrator. Just a mouse. Just a mouse with a lot of time. I assume, or maybe not a lot of time. That's also a thing. I need to start a D&D campaign for my office. And I'm just like, I've got so many ideas, but I've got no time to execute them. So, that's something to figure out. Oh, my back. Itchy, itchy. Voice went all squeaky. And nice. Is that nice? Just raise it all a little bit. Just a little bit. too, just for funsies. I must say this lo-fi medieval music is pretty good. Verdict, I approve. I like it. It might make me a little too calm. Like, definitely feel like I'm gonna sleep really well. But other than that, all positive stuff. All good things. All good things. The most positive thing I could say about like a soundtrack or a thing like that is that like, oh, it makes me kind of want to sleep because I don't sleep well. I sleep like shit. Like I'm the worst at sleeping. Like if sleeping was a competition, I'd come dead last. Sometimes, sometimes maybe not, but like I'm just ugh. And I don't mean like I'm just bad at sleeping. I'm just a bit of an insomniac, you know. But like it's yeah, it's a struggle to sleep a lot of the time. So if anything or any content actually helps me get to sleep, that's amazing stuff. And I actually think that this music is pretty good for that. It's making me sleepy. Which is okay because I've only got an hour left of my stream. So can get out of here, sleep, wake up tomorrow, do it all again. Except by again I mean stream for 8 hours, 7 hours. And let's be honest, hopefully make some significant progress. Because, like, oh, a 7 hour stream, fantastic for making progress on. Oh, holy crap. The amount of progress we can make on a 7 hour stream is, oh, fantastic. Fantastiche, you know? Love it every single time. I look back at what I did over that day, and it's just like, it's insane. And the fact that I may be needing to add an extra panel to my, not panel, page to this comic chapter, it's like, I need all of those kinds of days that I can get. Actually, which way did the sun lean? It leant left. Just checking. It's a very easy mistake to make, but if I do make it, then it's just a pain in the ass to clean up and fix. So just get it right now. Hold on. Because I'm almost certain that, like, I print out every single page once I've finished it and I make notes. And just to make edits and stuff on, writing and dialogue and things like that if I feel like it could flow a little bit better. But also with the intention that if I ever, once I finish the volume, and then we do like the big push to get it printed and stuff, I would probably go back and I would make all of those edits and then alterations and all those kinds of changes, just so then when people read it, there's like, it's as pristine and as refined as I can make it. Because, like, yeah. But right now, it's like there are certain things that I just need to get done or get over. Like, get over the hump of learning to draw landscapes and working with landscapes and working on landscapes and stuff like that, making those as efficient as drawing the character panels and things like that. So, yeah, I need to learn. I need to keep learning how to illustrate comics and stuff. So then once I'm done, I can go back and be like, oh, this is actually easy to fix now with the knowledge that I have. Then yeah, I'll get more bang for your buck when the comic comes around. Okay. There is still a ton to do, but I am making headway. And yeah. And this, I definitely feel like it can be altered. But for now, it's fine. For now, it works. Oh man. Does that look right? No, absolutely not. It needs to have that, like, it can start there, but it needs to, like, end there, essentially. It can't, like, just go completely vertically. That looks so weird. Alright, next. How to make wood paneling. Easy way. The easy method. That took me way too long to figure out. Took me essentially a year to figure out that I could do it this way. Because, again, stupid. Dingus mouse. The mouse has a brain, but not often. And then, essentially, just get this, darken it, and then change my mind, because I actually kind of want to make the dog lighter. So I just go back through. It'll be lighter, but only, like, because it's got a shadow on it now. I'm gonna need to make it real light. That's about, yeah, there we go. Much lighter. Very nice. Tell you what, I can't wait to get to that panel where it's just a donkey's face, because that's going to be fantastic to draw. No background, no nothing, just donkey. That's it. As opposed to the many kind of complicated layers. There you go. And I'll need to put the writing in. For the doghouse inn, but that's pretty good. Oh no, Ratchet doesn't have any shadows on him. Hold on. I can fix that. Not a single shadow on him. Completely forgot that he was there. He's so small compared to everything else. That's why he's such a good rogue. He's just so small. Just disappears, blends into the background. It's like whatever Gandalf said about hobbits being really good burglars. The lust of the warm tones. Oh, also a thing I was going to say, canonically, Ratchet is colorblind. And I've had a few discussions with other artists about how do I accurately, oh not accurately depict, but like give that good sense of, not realism to him, but basically how do I capture that in his depiction? And so he's got the color corrective goggles. And that's what they're there for. They correct color for him. But we might get a panel where we get to see through his eyes and it will be colorblind mode, essentially. Which is kind of fun. At least for me. It may not be for you guys, because that's going to be one hell of a thing to look at. But it may just be one panel of colorblindness. Let's just get Ratchet shadowed first. He's the most important, surely. And one thing I just realized, Ratchet's not casting a shadow, so I'll have to add some warm shadows to include that, but I'll do that later. It's not a huge difference, so it can wait. There we go. Oh, before I finish on this part, just add the shadows for his pupils, because he doesn't have, I can never remember the name of them, but he doesn't have colors in his pupils. He just has pupils. Unlike most of the other characters you'll see in this story who all have like normal pupils, the goblins do not have pupils. I mean, they do have pupils, they don't have the colored part of the pupil. The sclera? I don't know. I don't think that's what it's called, but he doesn't have that. And neither do the other goblins. I'm trying to think if there's an exception to that rule. I don't think so. But yeah. They don't have pupils. Fuck that. Because I've drawn Ratchet with pupils, and originally he was going to have blue eyes. But it looked really freaky. Like, it looked really, really freaky. So I decided I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give him, blue pupils. Not pupils. Oh, God, I've given him blue pupils. I'm not going to give him blue colored eyes. Just not going to give him any color in his eyes because it looks super weird. So yeah, that's how that decision was made. There's a lot of messages going on my phone. Very weird. Just chill out. Is there anything else that I actually... Oh, yeah. There's one other thing that I need to add color to, and it's the background, like the far background. Let me just check what I've done there. It's going to be really hard to see through this, but like, yeah, so one fallen tree, that's about it. And which way does it fall? The opposite to this fallen tree. Alright. If people are looking for consistency, I gotta give it to him. There, fallen tree. Also, this stuff needs shadow. Scoop. Okay. I feel like there's gonna be a lot more to do on this one, which isn't a bad thing, but it's just like the highlighting layer is gonna be interesting, and then I'm gonna do a bit of rendering afterwards, which will probably take up a bit of time. But I just want the panels to look good as well, so it's a worthwhile sacrifice of my time. And also, like, I am still happy with how quickly it took to get this done, because we started from the line work today and we're already on shadows, and from here it just gets easier. From shadows it just gets easier. So sweet. Just gonna make it slightly darker and then do another. Oh wait, no, it's the other way around, isn't it? Shite, I need to make it lighter. Could probably just raise the value because it's a shadow, so I don't actually need to change the color. But yeah, this is how you kind of add depth to your shadow layers. So you just usually you would make her darker. Like you would start the shadow out darker, and especially darker than this shadow blue, but you've still got a little bit of light to work with, so that's how I kind of add my shadows. Oh, that's a terrible branch. There we go. But yeah. Because they're really going. What are these messages? Chill out. I will respond in a second. If it's super important, jump on the street. Be like, hey, Gravis, your house is burning down. Doesn't appear to be, but, you know, you never know. Oh, let me stretch. Apologies, gang. Just stretching out the humours. Add a few cracks and stuff into the stonework. Cool. Now, just check before we move on. Is there anything I'm missing? So, highlights. I also need a few little, like, shadows in between trees, like tree bush bits or tree bulbs. And I need shadows for the bunting as well. But from there, we are pretty good. Oh, and there's also no shadow on this bit of stone. Fuck. Fuck. Cool. Nice. All right. As I continue working. Cool. All right. Highlights. Ugh. I am thinking. I'm thinking I might leave that here for tonight. Made a good bit of progress. And there are a few things I would like to fix, but I'd probably wait till the 7-hour stream tomorrow to do them. So, with that in mind, yeah, I think I might raid out. Because, yeah, 2 hours, 30 minutes, that's pretty good. That's not too bad. I'm thinking, should be, yeah, there's plenty to work with tomorrow, and then enough time to make a good bit of progress anyway. So, with that said, let's see who's live tonight. Oh. Because I'm just so exhausted. Like, I'm so tired. Ooh, little spaceships. Who raided me a little while back, and I've wanted to return the favor for a while. But let's also just check all our options. M3 is live as well. That's a tough call. Little spaceships or M3. Both dear friends. I do not know anything about Genshin. That's the only thing I'm thinking in regards to not raiding little spaceships. And I really like the Evil Within, so I'm thinking we'll go M3. May 3. Oh, is he right at the start? Excellent. There is a scene that is really grim, like visually quite grisly, that I'm not looking forward to seeing. But let's raid anyway, because we love this guy. He's awesome. So please join me in my raid to it, and I will see all of you tomorrow, where I will be streaming for 7 hours. I'll be streaming all day. So until then, I will see you next time. Bye.